You're watching 12 WKRC TV, a new generation of news. 12 Newsmakers starts now.
Good morning and welcome to Newsmakers. Societal attitudes change, and with those changes, practice and habits change, slowly. To speed change, government sometimes steps in and passes legislation and establishes new, measurable standards. By their nature, those standards are necessarily disruptive to the established way of doing business, invariably experienced as a burdensome. The ultimate criteria of evaluation, however, has to be to what extent do they move American society towards its historic goal of equality. One such issue is Title IX. Title IX is designed to promote greater equity among female and male athletes in the nation's colleges. Although every major college faces these issues, currently Miami University has been on the line. Last weekend, the Board of Trustees faced the prospect of eliminating 4 men's sports: soccer, golf, tennis, and wrestling. The board delayed a final decision to study the prospect of raising $26 million as an endowment to support the addition of new women's sports and the retention of the men's sports. Last Saturday, 12 News reporter Kim Dillon prepared this background story about the human dimension of this prospect.
I've been to the NCAA tournament finals for the last 5 years, so that's something I've been around and I wanted to be a part of.
20-year-old Brady Brooks wrestles 141-pound opponents on a rubber mat, but he also wrestles with decisions whether to stay at Miami University.
It's either transfer and go to another school to wrestle, or stay here where I've made hundreds of friends and I have a life here.
But university trustees are also wrestling with decisions. They are now challenging the athletic department to come up with $13 million in endowments to fund the sports programs, and they have to do it by the middle of April.
The only new thing that has come up is that there is a groundswell right now. And I think that it comes down to all of us looking at each other and say, put your money where your mouth is.
I've always been an optimistic thinker, but to believe that we can raise 13 million, let alone 26 million in 2.5 months, that's not fair.
In sports, you have to have, mental toughness, and you have to have focus. And this breaks that a lot.
Head coach Chuck Angelo knows it will take more than bake sales and car washes to reach that kind of a financial goal. Alumni support will be critical.
Wrestling isn't about winning matches on this rubber mat. It's about winning matches in life at 25 years old, 35 years old, 45, 50. Our guys have had a lot of victories out there. Hopefully they can, see where the connection between wrestling and their life is and maybe give back a buck.
For this team, they know it's a close match, now in overtime.
That's definitely going to be hard, not wrestling, but it's something I'm going to have to deal with, as is the rest of the team.
To discuss the situation at Miami, I am joined this morning by Susan Cross Lipinckey, an associate professor of physical education, health, and sports studies. Susan is also a lawyer. In addition, Professor Lipinckey headed a faculty committee that reviewed the forces at work and the options available to Miami over the past year. Susan, welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you.
How would you frame this issue? We set this up as Title IX, but how would you frame this issue at Miami?
I think at Miami, as it is at most institutions, it's about Title IX, providing equity for women, but it's also about dollars and cents, because quite frankly, if we had an endless pool of money available to us, the obvious choice would be to add women's sports to be able to comply with Title IX. Unfortunately, given the economic situation, simply adding women's sports is not feasible for the university
when
at this time.
When you're saying simply adding and doing nothing to men's sports.
That's correct.
So
retaining
a whole new creation. Okay.
Right.
And that's just difficult.
It's very difficult, and the dollars and cents figures would indicate that that's not feasible right now.
Let's come back to the dollars and cents in a moment. What are universities under Title IX? What are they required to do in this athletic area? I'm not sure I'm clear on that at all.
Okay, essentially Title IX requires compliance at 3 levels. The first is an equal participation level, and that participation basically requires that participation among athletes mirrors the rates of your student population.
So
for
at
example,
Miami, yeah, what's
example,
that?
at Miami, we have approximately 54 to 55% of our student population is female, the remainder is male. Our athletic proportion is just about the reverse image of that. And so in order to come into compliance, what we need to do is bring the proportion of female athletes up to 55%.
You know, what's the range there? I mean, in other programs, for example, in terms of desegregating the schools, there was always, okay, what was the racial composition of the community, and then should be reflected, et cetera, but there's always a range. You don't have to hit things exactly. How close do you have to come here?
Right now, that's a very good question. Used to be there would be a range given. Now they don't seem to have that flexibility, and I'm not a person who keeps up on the absolute case law, but the indications would be that it's going to be judged on an individual basis, and not if you're close, then maybe they'll look at the kinds of efforts that you've made and those kinds of things. It won't be made on an absolute basis.
Okay, you were saying there were several criteria here, and the first one was compliance in terms of reflecting the general makeup of the student body. What else?
That's correct. The second is that your grants and aid or your scholarship support needs to be reflective of the number of athletes. So, for example, if you have 50% of your athletes are women and 50% of your men, then that means that 50% of your scholarship dollars need to go to women and 50% to men. Right now, I think at Miami, the proportion is approximately 67 to 69% of the scholarship dollars go to men. And
so there's more even more male athletes on scholarship than there are male athletes in proportion.
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
And then the third is a sort of equality among programs, and that doesn't mean that, like, if we offer football for men, we have to offer football for women. What it means is that for those opportunities we offer for women, they have to be equivalent to men. If we buy the men the top quality equipment for sport X, then for sport Y for women, we have to do the same.
Well, you know, you just said the magic word, football, or what I think is the magic word anyway.
Seems to be among a lot of people.
If you've got a football team like Miami has, is there any way to be in compliance with Title IX? How many people play on a college football team at a place like Miami?
The participation is about 105 male athletes, and I think the NCAA allows up to 85 scholarships.
Well, is there any women's sport that even comes close to that?
No, not on a sport-for-sport basis, right. Which is why, in terms of compliance, you'll see at many institutions that there appear to be more sports for women than there are for men, even though the number of participants may be approximately the same.
Okay. And the football question, one of the things you said, it's always financial. One of the things that I find in the news reports is frequently, well, men's basketball and men's football generate the money, and therefore they pay the bills, and et cetera, et cetera. In fact, though, at a place like Miami, which has a tremendous tradition in football, does football really generate any funds for any other sports? Or is football, in fact, a drain on the athletic budget generally, just because it's such an expensive sport to run?
It is an expensive sport, and I guess the way I would describe it, and I don't have the dollars and cents figures in front of me, but football generates income, so it produces income, but I wouldn't classify it as a profit-making venue. Whereas
basketball probably is. Somebody has to be making money, or how do we? Okay, well, maybe nobody's making money.
And basketball does make money, but whether it's profit making is another question.
Right.
They may come closer to sustaining themselves.
Now, you were saying that you have to reach these criteria, or they will decide. Who are they, and what can be done? I mean, if you don't make it, what are the implications?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. Lawsuits have been filed across the country, for institutions that have not been in compliance.
These would be lawsuits by maybe students?
They could be by students.
Okay.
That's not uncommon, female students in particular. The other avenue they have is filing a complaint with the Office of Civil Rights. to do an investigation.
And then what could happen? Okay, the lawsuit, those suits, I guess there could be a financial penalty paid to the person who sues, or it could even be a class suit, I guess,
Right.
class action suit. But what about, can the federal government step in and say, you're not doing this in athletics, therefore we take some of your ed dollars out of other budget? Does it threaten other budgets?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that question.
All right. Now, Miami's facing, I guess the board has put off for a month or 5 weeks, whatever
Right.
it is,
Till
trying to
early
look
April.
at options. Looking at raising $13 million or $26 million, gee, these numbers, just throw those out. They all sound big. What's
do.
that about? What do they want to raise?
They want to raise a total of $26 million in an endowment that would allow them to then sustain the existing men's sports and then look for funding for, it would have to require an additional women's sport, because if you retain all of those men's sports, your proportionality will not change, and we need to change that.
Yeah, let's be clear. I think a lot of people don't understand endowments. So
Okay.
$26 million sounds like a lot,
Right.
but you can only spend 5% of the interest every year.
That's correct.
So the way, quick calculation there, about $1.3 million is all it would generate.
That's correct.
And in my understanding, even with the athletic situation as it is right now, Miami's running a deficit, not even adding any women's sports.
That's
Just from a
correct.
financial point of view, you've got a deficit, right?
That's right. That's right.
So cutting these 4 sports might not be such a bad financial choice aside from Title IX, just from a financial one, balancing the books.
Balancing the books, it would assist in achieving, correcting that deficit.
Are there women at Miami who feel that the institution has not done enough to meet the goals that they think are fair, legal or otherwise? Is this an issue that's bubbling on the campus among the students, among coaches, faculty?
I think that there are people who are concerned, and not because we don't have another women's sport or whatever, but we have actually done a lot at Miami over the past probably 15 to 17 years in terms of adding women's sports, which we've done, also increasing other things that would be part of that 3-pronged test that I talked about, equitable programs, so that now men and women are more comparable in terms of their staff, their locker rooms, their travel and recruiting budgets.
So the
those
point
kinds of
here
things.
is that Title IX has had an impact.
Yes, it has. A
Without
positive
Title IX, would those things have happened?
I don't know. That would be pure speculation.
Counterfactual hypotheses, I think is what we call it in social work. Anyway, so there has been a change. These 4 sports, from your perspective, I'm asking you to speak now from the chair of the faculty
Right.
committee. Is this what you recommended? Is this what the faculty wants to see happen?
Well,
Cutting these 4 sports?
The Athletic Policy Committee, which I chaired up through the end of December, actually made a recommendation to eliminate men's wrestling and men's indoor track in conjunction with roster management. What that would have done is gotten us to meet the first prong of the test, where we would have been much closer in terms of proportionality. It would not have overcome the entire deficit, but with the caveat to the Department of Intercollegiate Athletics is, okay, you've now made the first step, let's go forward, look for the money. It wouldn't have required an endowment of $26 million, but I think the Department of Intercollegiate Athletics has made some strides in thinking about endowments now, rather than contribution of $10,000 comes in to Sport X and they spend that. Now it's going to be invested and you'll have 5% of the interest, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, state universities, I was in the development office of a private university. Private universities have historically thought very differently about endowments than state universities
Right.
have. State universities are now creating real endowments.
That's correct.
We've only got about a minute left. One final area I want to pick up on. What are Senator Lou Blessing, who is a senator from the west side of Hamilton County, Ohio senator, claims that Title IX can also be read to say that it's not only an athletic question, but that universities and colleges will have to, in the future, balance their academic programs. The example he gives all the time is that a area like nursing, which is historically heavily women, if there's 400 slots and only 100 men apply for that nursing program, then only 100 women will be allowed to be accepted, and there will be 200 slots that go empty. Or in engineering, just the opposite. As a lawyer, as a member of the faculty, do you see that as an active possibility, and is that an area of concern on campus?
No, I don't see that as comparable at all to intercollegiate athletics. Essentially, programs like nursing, what Title IX requires is equal opportunity. Nursing, when a person applies, like Miami has a strong nursing program housed predominantly on the regional campuses. When a person applies, their credentials are looked at, they're admitted whether they're male or female. The issue with intercollegiate athletics it is the one area on campus that has sex-segregated programs, and so you can't say, well, we give these opportunities to women. It's not about you have to have an equal number. You have to have equal opportunities.
Yeah, you know, you said, and we're running out of time, and I'm aware of that, but you said equal opportunity, but sometimes it looks to me like this is about equal outcome rather than equal opportunity.
No, I think it's about equal opportunity.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is going to be a burning issue at Miami for a long time.
I think it is.
We may have to have you come back, so thank you.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. After the break, we will meet some of Greater Cincinnatians recognized last weekend as image makers, people who impact our community in a special way.
The King said that each of us has a choice that we can make. We can either be a people or a person that is made by history, or a people or a person that make history.
Welcome back. Last Saturday night, Applause magazine sponsored the 9th annual Imagemaker Awards to recognize outstanding individuals in the African American community. Some of those recognized are already established and well known, but Imagemakers also tries to call attention to emerging leaders who may only be known among their friends and co-workers. I am joined now by Sallie Elliott, the publisher of Applause magazine and the founder and sponsor of the annual Imagemakers Awards. Joining Sallie is Albert Brown, this year's winner for public service. Mr. Brown is a Cincinnati police officer from District 3, as you can tell, and he innovated and runs a highly successful computer COP program, computer community-oriented policing program. COP, I think most people know what that means by this time, but I'm not sure. Who knows? Welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you for having us.
Sallie, 9 Imagemakers.
Yes, later.
Why? What's the goal of Imagemakers?
The goal of Imagemakers is to present to our community a very positive portrayal of African Americans here in our city. So often in the media, and I am a part of the media, it is said that it is easier if you're an African American to do something very negative and wind up on the front cover of the magazine or any publication or on the news even. Yeah. We wanted to challenge those stereotypical images. Imagemakers salutes excellence, high achievement, high people who have contributed and made a very, very positive image in our community and have impacted our community significantly because of what they do. And we wanted to share those stories with the community at large.
You know, some of those people are very well known. Like,
yes.
I know you gave a,
yes.
we saw Ken Blackwell going into our commercial break, who was a lifetime award winner in the past. And I know this year, Bishop Herbert Brown, yes. Herbert Thompson, I'm sorry, from the Episcopal Church was honored for his work. But what I find fascinating is the people who the broader public maybe doesn't know their name, doesn't know their face, that I think is more interesting.
Well, what we try to do is bring a diverse selection of individuals that we recognize. We recognize individuals in 10 different categories, which would give the public and our community a very real sense of the depth and the breadth of the African American community here. So we're very, very proud of that. The well-known names, of course, they are impacting our community, but there are also individuals, a lot of individuals, who in their very quiet, very private ways are significantly impacting our community as well. One right next to me.
I was going to say, sitting right next to you. Al, you know, you're sitting there with the police.
I feel very safe, don't you?
Yeah, I feel very safe right here, especially from these people. Anyway, you run a program. We've all heard about cop programs of trying to get the police close to the community and get people known. But you have a little twist on that.
Yeah.
But explain that a little bit.
Well, part of the reason why Computer Cop was developed was simply because at one point in the Western Hill area, especially the Millville area, we ran across a problem with the communication gap between the youth and law enforcement officers that was so great that they were actually throwing rocks at police cars and not allowing police and firemen to take radio runs. So my superior, my captain at that time, asked me would I go over there and try to work out something, since he knew I'd grown up in the area. So what I saw was simply that when I spoke to the young kids, 6, 7 years old, they would act like he couldn't possibly be talking with me, you know, to me, because he's a police officer. And my heart fell to the floor, you know, and I really didn't know what to do. But about 3 months later, I met Miss Melanie Allen, and we started communicating about things that could be done in the neighborhood. And we were teaching the parents computer skills, and they would bring their young kids.
So you were already interested in computers, and you were teaching parents.
Right.
And then, so the kids?
Yeah, well, parents would bring the kids, and we would let the kids play on the computers. We noticed that they had a tremendous interest in computers. So I talked with her. I said, you know, I'm on the cop team. I said, you know, we taking kids to baseball games, basketball games. I said, the one avenue we haven't explored is working with their minds. I said,
you know, one of the things that fascinates me about that, I guess, you know, you sort of have the impression, gee, there's now computers in every classroom, and the schools are taking care of that. Is that not true, or are these kids?
At that particular time, this was in '92 when the program originally was started, and we collaborated with Back on the Block, and they wanted a program that would last year-round, not just during the summer. So we started out with giving the youth 1 day and then 2 days, and after the parents were finished with their classes, we found that the kids still loved the programs, and we had so many requests from other communities to start this program by the parents and community leaders that we decided to expand into other areas.
One quick question. How many young people have been part of this since '92?
Since '92, I would venture to say probably over 2,000 kids.
That's a lot of people.
Oh, yes.
And has it changed attitudes?
It has. When we take our surveys with the youth and the parents, they usually always come back with 95 and 90% scores that their attitudes have changed toward law enforcement officers just due to that relationship building program.
Sallie, this is the sort of story that you're trying through Imagemakers to get out.
This is what we want the public to know about.
Now, you said there were 10 categories, and arts are a category. There's a whole range.
They're very common categories, but research, public service, advocacy, communications, entertainment, medicine, and health. We want to give the community a sense of just the depth of the community in terms of the African American population.
You know, I know you're already looking ahead to the 10th
annual.
Oh,
no, I'm not. I'm tired.
No. If people know somebody in their community, can they nominate them?
Anybody in the entire community can nominate individuals. We get nominations from all aspects of the community. His nomination came from someone in the community who informed us about the program and sent in the nominations. We welcome nominations from all aspects of this community.
Okay. And now just a quick, we only have about 20 seconds left. Could you still use more computers and more support?
We can always use more computers. The program is in great demand, and we have more kids in need of that type of training than we have computers or equipment.
And you can be contacted through District 3, I bet.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much for being here, and congratulations for a successful award.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Join us again next Sunday for a special Newsmakers. 12 News reporter Jeff Hirsch has prepared a special in-depth report just for Newsmakers. While judges suspend licenses of multiple DUI offenders, new fake licenses are frequently easy to come by. Can anything be done to correct this before the next unlicensed drunk driver kills again? Join us next week to find out.